All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. It is a wonderful day to do a Twitter space with all of you. Today, the team, the senior ambassadors, and community are here to chat about some recent developments with the upcoming V2 mainnet launch and the testnet that was launched recently. Since our last Twitter space, the Gorilla Testnet V2D app has been deployed and testing is well underway. So we have some highlights on the improvements made so far. And then after that, you'll hear from myself and Senior Ambassador USC Miggs. He's up here today about the latest conversations that he's had and when he went to ETH Denver, talked to some cool teams and whatnot there and elsewhere that are interested in working with Sarcophagus with some possible integrations. So we'll touch on some highlights with that stuff too. Before we get to the meat of the stats on the work that's happened so far, I really want to just thank every one of the node operators who have been supporting Sarcophagus Network right now, because we've seen an insanely amazing group of operators join the network, and we blew through our original goals for the testnet size by 160%. So huge round of applause to everyone that showed up and help operate this network. These operators have done multiple small updates as well as contract updates and never missed a beat. We've come right back to however many operators we had before every update afterwards. So it definitely deserves some recognition for that. It's also definitely important to recognize the massive contribution that all the testnet users and the main DAO voters alike have had in building the growth of the Sarcophagus ecosystem. Without each of you individuals' participations and voice, we wouldn't be where we are as a DAO. So thanks everyone for your participation. And let's go over some highlight stats on the testnet to get everyone an idea of some of the performance stats and just things that have been happening and how much load and just how much participation we've had overall up till now. So first off, one of the biggest stats is the total number of sarcophagi created on the current contract. There's been over 12,600 individual sarcophagi wrapped on this contract. And that is a huge number. That is a lot of people coming in and wrapping data on this testnet. And we've also had over 8,800 individual user feedback entries. So we have just this insane mountain of information to sort through with feedback on, bugs, slight UI improvements, just all of these users coming and giving us a little bit of information on their experience. So really appreciate that from everyone. Another interesting thing to note is the Goerli Sarco token swap volume since the launch of the testnet D app has steadily remained in the top 10 and even often the #1 spot on Goerli steady through testnet. So that just gives people kind of a rough idea of the bare volume of just the tokens moving for the exchange of fees and whatnot on the app itself. So what does this mean? These volume stats that I just mentioned kind of gave the builders a chance to test and scale the D app in a basically simulated bull run environment. Since the Goerli to mainnet ETH bridge was created, conditions like gas cost and spikes, network traffic, and then the D app's own user volume all attributed to creating this incredible testing environment where the team can optimize the app to handle a bull run environment on mainnet more efficiently. So basically all these factors from the bridge and all the little things that have been happening on Goerli have created this high network traffic, high gas cost and spikes, and basically just all the same factors that you would have saw during the peak bull run. And so it really provided this awesome environment where the team can get that data and just tackle it, because there's, we don't always get the chance to test in a maximum stress environment like this. So it's been really great for just data gathering. And so let's move on to updates a little bit. The team has been hard at work on updates and bug fixes, thanks to everyone's feedback and the volume of use. And so I want to recap some of these updates that we've had just to give everybody an idea of the actual building that's going on currently, like since the first launch on Goerli. I know from the user perspective, it may be hard to see all of this. There's a lot of chats going on. Our Discord is constantly popping off. It can be hard to keep up with everything. So I want to go over some of these updates that have been pushed so far. First, I want to start with the node-specific updates because that's where the majority of the changes have happened. The first contract update happened, I think it was about a month ago. This update added scaling to the fees based on a monthly rate rather than a flat rate per rewrap. Originally with the V1 design and the first early version of V2, Nodes set a flat rate for their services. So they'd say, hey, I want 5 Sarco, and that was just their flat rate every time a sarcophagus was rewrapped. So that made it a little difficult to scale fees realistically based on individual use cases, time allotments, etc. So they changed it to a monthly rate that actually scales down by the second. So a node can say, hey, if somebody, per month, I want 5 Sarco, instead of saying just a flat rewrap time, they say per month. So then if somebody uses the node for a day, it scales to a day's cost based on that 30-day cost. So it really helped give some better tools for the experience for users, and it helped the nodes operate their own fee system better, because it gave them the ability to just kind of more closely set their fees based on how they're being used. The next soft update was a dashboard profile update for operations. This basically just had to do with the contract update that made it to where people could scale their node fees to a month, but it was reading on the profile as a per second, because that was actually the multiplier that it used. You'd set it per month, and it would scale that down to a per second, and then multiply that based on how many seconds your sarcophagus lived. So it made it the math a little bit difficult for setting your monthly fee after setup. So they changed that on the profile from a per second to a per month. And that was just a soft update, just a compose down pull for the nodes, and then they were back up. Another soft change that was made after that was one that was addressing some of the failed sarcophagi we saw. There was an issue with how the Unix timestamps were sourced for sarcophagi when they were created, between the browser hosting the DApp, like when a user goes in and they're hosting their own session of the DApp in their browser there, and they create their sarcophagus. The way it was sourcing the Unix timestamp for that sarcophagus was not lining up with the same timestamp that the nodes had. So they were having failed unwraps because the node would see this request to unwrap and look at the timestamp on it and say, this timestamp hasn't come yet. I'm not unwrapping this early. So there became this little bit of problem there. So they went, and what they did was they updated both the DApp side for the user and the node side, so that both sides pull their Unix timestamp from the blockchain instead of a local browser window or anything like that. So now the time stamps across all of the sarcophagi are sourced from the block time instead of from whatever your local time is. So that really helps that get that uniform across. So a lot less failures, a lot more on-time unwraps. Let's see. All right. And the next thing, that as far as the nodes go, there is an update coming. I'll get to that here in a minute. But there is some planning being done on creating an interface for node operators, kind of an admin dashboard, so they can see their stats with more ease. Also adding a few more operational stats to their logs profile. Things like, how many sarcophagi you're watching, instead of just how much your total fee bonded is. So some bits being looked at being added there. Next, I want to just talk a minute about the DApp update side. One of the big things that's happened, because I mentioned all the volume that we experienced, there was definitely some scaling that had to happen because the volume just blew through the ceiling. So scaling has definitely been one of the big things they're looking at with the front end. There is one small issue that some of you have been asking me about, where the archaeologist page gets kind of hung up, and that is actually one of the main parts they're scaling right now. The problem with that page is as the app gets used and more data gets stored on chain for each node and each sarcophagi, the app, when it pulls that page up, it has to source all of that data so that it can put everything in the little row there. And the problem with sourcing that was, over time, after 12,000 plus sarcophagi gets created, it was a lot of data. So what the team decided was that they were going to start looking at the graph protocol integrations, so that they could make that data sourcing for the DApp in general just a lot more efficient and quicker. So while that archaeologist page is a little sticky right now, it will load eventually. If you let it sit and load, it just takes it a while to source all that data. So until that update is pushed, that's just kind of giving you guys an idea of that next integration and what's going on there to help with scaling the data, because there's a lot of data this front end has to handle as these number of sarcophagi increase over time. And then beyond that, there are some general updates to the UI plan for different features to increase user ease. We've gotten a lot of feedback from people about, little things that can improve the experience. So there are a lot of plans with that. However, as far as UI goes for the front end, that will be pushed towards the end of all the updates, because it is a downstream affected part from the contracts. So if there's a contract change, it could affect the front end. So you always want to do your contract updates and all of your core structure updates, then make the front end work for that. So the front end kind of comes second when with all that. Got to make sure all the contract updates and everything are done, then start shaving down on that front end and making it work just beautifully. It already works really great, but always little improvements that people notice and stuff. So that stuff will get addressed. All right, so back to the last bit of updates here. There is an update actually prepared for the nodes today. We're prepping an announcement for later today for what looks to be the last major contract update. This update will allow nodes to set a one-time minimum fee to cover gas costs associated with creating and wrapping sarcophagi. With guarding sarcophagi. Specifically where the time window is too short for the fee to compensate for the gas used. So like the problem that we were seeing nodes were running into a little bit was that if somebody say only wanted to wrap a sarcophagus for one day, and their fee, let's say their total fee they paid ended up being like 1 sarco for the whole thing, that doesn't cover the gas cost associated with the token transfers for the fees and really any of the operation. So we saw a bit of an issue there where nodes need to be able to do, and this is actually similar to a V1 system where you have just a one-time fee that you can set. You could say it's 5 sarco. You basically want to scale it to what you think your gas cost, your average gas cost for operation is going to be. And then that's a one-time fee that covers your operational gas cost. And then from there on out, your regular fee covers operations. So it's supposed to help node operators kind of cover that gas gap there, especially in these heavy markets where gas jumps really high. It's good to have something there of a buffer to be like, oh, if gas spikes super high while your node's operating, you at least got something to compensate for the gas, and then you can operate everything on your fees after that. So this update will consist of just 4 commands, really, composed down, register, pull, and up. And we will give all the nodes a 1-week window to switch. And during that time, we will be shutting off the uptime tracker that we have running for the Testnet node incentive. This way, everyone has a good chance to get operations going on the new contract and set up their new one-time fee to compensate for gas costs. Recent announcement, we mentioned that we're opening up the fee market for nodes, allowing everyone to set their fees based on their own operational needs. So this is adding yet another factor to that. So we're going to let everybody kind of like get comfortable with that for a week, and then we're going to fire back up the uptime counter that keeps track of all of the nodes as far as their uptime. This feature will be really helpful during high network traffic times, as I said, when gas prices spike and get generally high. So really excited about that update. And excuse me. And then the next thing that we wanted to touch on here was some integration chats real quick. Migs, if you have a chance.
Yep, no, I'm right here.
Awesome, sir. I'll let you take it away.
Cool. So some of the major things that we've been talking through and trying to slowly build Sarcophagus is I was recently at East Denver and actually ran into quite a few different projects and teams out there that were looking to slowly try to build and establish either integrations or partnerships. Because if you think of what we're doing at Sarcophagus, we're basically building a decentralized dead man switch tool. How that tool can be used is basically up to the user. So we're just basically finding ways in that are use cases that we have already defined on our website, how we could expand that and ultimately build up to a point where we work with different project teams where if they need a similar utilization as like a dead man switch, they don't need to have to build it themselves. They could just integrate within Sarcophagus or integrate that piece into their project. So, examples of use cases of types of companies that we've been looking at are the various wallets. So, account abstractions happening, social recovery. That whole area is a whole new realm in which, a dead man switch can be used to help aid in like password recovery and all these other things. Smart wallets, smart contract wallets, like the ones that use MPC cryptography is another area that we're looking for. We actually reached out and had a company reach out to us at East Denver called Defense. And their project is just DFNS, and basically they have like a MPC type wallet where they can integrate with an adapt, and you know these are the type of companies that we've been trying to talk to, and project teams that we've been talking to understand, how can we like help each other, and ultimately, one, grow our brand, b, mutually assist each other with supplying the utility of a dead man switch. Um, the storage that is built into the Arweave portion of our project, and also the decentralized nature of it as we're a project built on Ethereum. So DFNS was our defense was a really good conversation to have. Another super positive one that we had is reaching out to since Ethereum moved to proof of stake, you have a lot of staking OS type projects. So Dapnode, Devado, Rocket Pool are all examples of like different softwares that you can basically run a node at home. So have your own validator node for staking at home. And what a lot of these projects offer is basically like a dApp store. So for us, one of the big things with this is that we talked to one of the companies, Dapnode, which is a permissionless, open source, censorship resistant dApp store, and working to get integrated into their dApp store, and then ultimately try to meet some of the requirements to be one of their curated or preferred dApps that you would see upon launching. So we had a good talk with their project manager over there. He actually knew of our project when we first got launched a couple of years ago. So those talks were very, very positive. And I think, once we get ready to launch a mainnet, we already have a couple of things lined up to try to integrate and work with different projects to get us built out, and ultimately, like I said, help grow the brand, help provide the utility of a dead man switch and what that entails to the broader crypto and blockchain ecosystem. I think, focusing on the utility that we can provide is like the biggest and best thing that we can do to help grow and have that partnership and integration piece. So from my side, those are kind of the big areas that we've been looking at. And then on top of that, you have the probably the third area that we're looking at is more security-based projects. So you have projects like Blowfish, Harpy, all these other kind of projects that help provide some Web3 type security type projects. So they range in various use cases. But ultimately, what they're trying to do is help protect their users, and basically, like a dead man switch is an awesome way to help safeguard assets from being lost. So that's probably the third area that we're going to be focusing on and looking into, try to expand and help see where we can jive or have common synergies with some of these projects. So from my side, those are kind of the top three areas. And like I said, the defense, Dapnode, those talks have been very promising and very interesting. And, I think it's just the start. Once we get into mainnet, we're hoping to have some of these talks a little bit more ironed out, and then we could really focus on what do we need to do to help integrate and build into those projects. But that's kind of where we're leading to right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. And just to touch on what he said there too, integrations, we did a tweet thread recently that mentioned about it in our conversation with Inflection, that integrations really is going to be one of our biggest targets, if not the biggest target after mainnet, because that's probably going to be the sustained volume of the ecosystem, since the main goal of Sarcophagus is to be a tool that anyone can use, but primarily a tool that most people don't know they're using. And I just did some research on this recently. Like Zach brought to mind something that I didn't know. Google has a dead man switch. So does Microsoft. So does Facebook. So does Instagram. Most of these really big mainstream companies, organizations, they already have it. They don't call it that because maybe they don't like the name, or maybe they want to give it their own proprietary name or something along those lines. But as far as it functions, it's a dead man switch. So the idea of it being integratable with all these different other types of platforms, social media, DApps, wallets, security profiles, you name it, it is all realistic because it's already being done, and we're just giving people a trustless solution. So that was my little bit there on integration. We're going to get to Q&A here pretty quick. So if anybody wants to start putting their hands up, I just have a couple more points here to hit, and then we'll get to Q&A and let everybody start asking some questions, get some conversations going. So just the last couple things to mention here. The V2 Tomb DApp looks to be live on mainnet early Q3, which would be early H2, basically the second half. This gives the team time to complete upgrades and bug fixes, like we mentioned, and get adequate testing done before the final push. So once this next big contract update goes in and we get those final little things put in, we do want to do one more solid push on testnet and get some more volume flowing through it, make sure everything's running smooth before that final mainnet push. And then last thing here is an expansion to other chains. I've been asked this actually probably 4 or 5 times just in the last week. It's definitely a goal once mainnet is live to first push to other EVM chains and L2s, because that's what it's being built initially as. So that's the easiest bridge there initially. And then to start working on other smart contract compatible chains, which I know there's a lot of really great ones out there. Arweave, Cardano. There's a lot of great smart contract compatible chains that we can build on. We started in EVM. It was the most logical choice at the time. So it'll be completed in EVM first, and it'll be on Ethereum mainnet first, just like the DAO. The DAO is on mainnet Ethereum. And then once that final V2 push on mainnet's made, then we're going to start looking at L2s, other EVM networks. A lot of that will be also for just expanding the use case potential, because efficiency for different types of use cases. Some of them, some people only need a dead man switch for 30 minutes to cross a border, and it might make more sense for them to do it on Polygon than Ethereum, etc. So there's a lot of expansion room there for different use cases depending on their situation, that different L2s and efficiency types and situations would cater to.
I guess one thing I'll add on top of that is, I guess for all you guys listening, if you guys want to help try to get a little bit more involved in the project, to help contribute, we're always looking for people to help out, that be it helping create content, be it written stuff, infographic type of stuff. So we're always looking for people in the community to help step up. I mean, many of us, myself included, that's how I got incorporated into the project, was really, finding the use case and the passion, and basically the ethos of this project really aligned with all the stuff that, I kind of personally aligned myself with. So I got involved, got passionate about the project, eventually, contributed more and more and more. And that's how I got to where I am at with Sarcophagus. So if there's any of you guys out there that like this really resonates to you, what we're trying to accomplish as a project, the whole ethos about being really focused on decentralization, providing the utility of a dead man switch, if that really jives with you, like, reach out to us, talk to us, let us know, create content. Like, we're always looking for more people who are passionate, who share that common passion with us. And you could be over here on the other side with us. I mean, it's community ran, community organized. That's the whole point of the DAO. So, if you want to help contribute more, just like reach out to us, and we can get in contact and see what you guys can do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always keeping our eyes out for new community members. In fact, one of them's here, one of our newest ambassadors, Crypto Carl. He's in the audience right now. He was just promoted to an ambassador through our SubDAO last month. And he did exactly that. He showed up and started writing a really cool article and was just like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And stuff like that gets our attention because, as you would think, being out here in public that we'd see a lot more of it. But that dedication, that drive to show up and create something unique for the community, for the project, is always valuable. No matter how many people do it, no matter how many few people do it, it is always amazing and valuable. And we need that leadership. We always need that leadership. I think a DAO is built out of leaders. Like, everyone is a leader in a DAO in some form, whether you're voting or just helping the community, helping keep people informed, being a mod, being an ambassador, all of it. All of you are leaders in a DAO because your vote and your voice matters. So definitely, if any of you have any ideas, or you want to be part of the building, you want to be part of the community, just let us know. We are absolutely going to welcome all of you. This is a DAO and a community, and we want to see it grow. And with that, I don't see any hands up, but if anybody else wants to come up, I'll give it a minute here. But that about covers everything we had for today. We went over our updates and everything that we've had. I see a lot of node operators in the audience today that I recognize just from chats and Discord and everything. Thanks for being here, everyone. All the ambassadors being here, team being here. Really appreciate everybody showing up. Decent.land, I see you. Big Tone, what's up, buddy? All right. Well, with that, everybody have a wonderful afternoon.